All right. Well, happy Tuesday evening, everybody. Thank you for joining along. I do appreciate you guys. Of course, we are having a little bit of technical difficulties, but again, that's what happens whenever you do live streaming. You never know what you're going to get because usually right now we would be streaming live on LinkedIn, but apparently for some reason it's having a problem launching. So we might have to do it on the fly and try to remove it and come it back again. So let's go. Save changes. One more time. We're going to try this again, LinkedIn. See how this goes. Bammo. Oh, no. LinkedIn is fighting with me today. So we're not agreeing. But you know what? Let's go ahead and get started with the show anyway. So, guys, if this is your first time watching the show, all the gratitude in the world, guys. You guys are what makes this show possible, and I'm very appreciative of everybody who follows along. So we are streaming live right now on a few other destinations other than LinkedIn. So let's go ahead and cover those real quick. If this is your first time checking us out and you're watching us on YouTube, thank you so much. Do us a favor if you're there. Hit the like and subscribe button. We are always trying to build our viewership there. And it's one of the wonderful things about streaming to multiple destinations is that you can have something like this happen with LinkedIn, and you can just go and jump on another live stream. So here we go. We are streaming live on YouTube. So hit the notification button as well if you're watching on YouTube. It'll let you know whenever we do schedule new lives, whenever there is new content on the channel, and then whenever we drop something on a new live, on YouTube, it will notify you, let you know. So check us out there on YouTube at www.youtube.com/made from scratch broadcast on YouTube. And of course, we are streaming live on on our other social media platforms, guys. So you can check us out on Facebook at www.facebook.com/MFSB Live. Do us a favor, hit the like button if you're watching us there on YouTube, and then YouTube on Facebook, and then we're also streaming live on Twitch at MFSB Live. You can check us out there. We're also streaming live on our Facebook profile, so you can check me out at Gabriel Elil on Facebook, and then we're also streaming live on Twitter via Periscope, and you can check us out there as well at MFSB Live. So thank you so much if you are watching on any of those other channels. So let us get started and talk about this evening's guest. So this gentleman has been on the show before. He was part of one of our 4-hour roundtables, but wanted to have him on to talk a little bit more about his past and some of the things that he's done. He is CEO of Blue Panther Media. It's a multimedia company that specializes in producing content for streaming, podcasts, websites, television, and other broadcast and print media sources. So, his company is currently focusing on producing content for the emerging field of esports, and that's a big thing right now, guys. So if you're unfamiliar with what esports is, it is a very, very huge growing field when you talk about businesses that are actually crafting themselves right now, because esports is huge. They've actually built in my area. There is a sports arena that they actually built out there in this complex out in Arlington, Texas, which is incredible. It's pretty massive, and it was a pretty big. It was a big spot before COVID-19 hit, but that just tells you about the level of how big esports is growing. And this guy is getting himself in there. Not only that, he's got an interesting past as well. So let's go ahead and bring him in and get the conversation started. Guys, help me welcome to the show this evening's guest, Mr. Charles Gentry. How you doing, Mr. Gentry?
Good. How you doing, Gabriel?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful. So, of course, other than the small little technical glitches, which, of course, always happen whenever you're doing a live stream, everything else is going pretty good. So let's go ahead and start talking a little bit about, let's talk about your past a little bit and how you got started in, and then we'll kind of work our way into Blue Panther Media. But let's go ahead and talk about how you got started in journalism as well, because that was something that you've done that spanned over 40 years. So that's a pretty interesting thing. And then some of the, I guess what you call bullet points of your life and who you've been connected with is also very interesting as well to get into. So let's go ahead and start there, and let's talk about how you got actually started in journalism. That's something that always interests me.
Well, it really was. I had a instructor in school, my English teacher, who encouraged me to write, and she went on to be pretty famous herself, Gloria Allred.
Yeah, a little bit.
And she may be a small woman, but believe me, she packs a big punch.
I can imagine.
Yeah, so I was an athlete back then, playing baseball in high school, and that's what I thought I'd go on to as a career. And she put in my mind back then, she said, if it doesn't work out for you in sports, I think you have some ability as a writer. You should look for something in the writing field. So as it went on, and I went into college, and played some ball at higher and higher levels, I came across some injuries, and I was injured 2 years in a row. And so I had to make a decision. Okay, am I going to try to take the third year to come back, or am I going to move on to something else? So when I thought about it, I thought about what she said, and I said, well, let me try writing. So I went into actually the music field first as a songwriter, and from there I then relayed that writing longer things. And since I was in music as a songwriter, I got asked one time, hey, somebody's looking for a writer, with this magazine, and you do writing and you're in music, so they're looking for a music writer, so why don't you try that? So for certain, I went and tried it out with the magazine, and next thing I knew, a month later, they were sending me out on interviews with music artists who had won Grammys and so on and so forth. I'm like, okay, this is baptism by fire, but when opportunity knocks, you answer, and that's what happened.
Yeah, that's a pretty interesting just to even start about. I mean, for a lot of people, those would be pretty strong bullet points in a career already. But then on top of that, again, you went out and started interviewing and became a journalist, and your path has crossed with a lot of big time celebrities. You've done a lot of really in-depth interviews with a lot of interesting people. What is one of the first things that kind of saying like you did, you had to learn, you had to learn in the fire, you had to be there. So what are some of the first things that you took away whenever you started the process of figuring out how to become a skilled journalist? What are some of the things you had to take away from learning how to do interviews and that sort of thing?
Well, one of the first things you learn real quick is don't be a fan. As a journalist, you're being paid to be a professional. You're being paid to get the story and to ask the right questions. And that's almost the opposite of being a fan. A fan just wants to find out, hey, what's the juicy stuff? Can I be your buddy? And so consequently, you're not going to ask some of the tough questions. And consequently, you end up, instead of being a journalist, being the person's friend who you're trying to interview. And that's the number one way to get a terrible interview and a terrible story.
Right.
So the first thing you have to do is understand that you're a professional and you're there to do a job and not to be a fan of whoever you're interviewing.
Exactly right. And that's an interesting thing, because that's one of the things that, of course, even doing it on the level that I'm doing it, that's one of the things you have to take away from it. Even if you have somebody that you're very well connected with, you still have to separate yourself and really want to dig deep and find out about whatever the subject you're covering or whatever it is you want to learn about that person. I mean, that's one of the best ways is to keep digging, like you said. And I'm pretty sure for me, that would be one of the first things that I would really have to learn, is to separate from being a fan. Because again, you see some of these people, you go, oh wow, these are not. It's not like it's everyday Joe somebody from the street. It's a real it's a real big time athlete or somebody. So I understand that's got to be one of the best learning processes, to be thrown in there trying to figure out, hey, if I really want to make it in this industry and really want to create a great story, I have to be able to separate who I am and what I am in doing an interview. And I again, that's hats off, because it's not easy to do for a lot of people. And like you said, it took you being there and getting experience to learn how to do that. And I think that's one of the things that I kind of take myself on, is seeing other people and learn from watching somebody else do interviews and watch how their interview skills work. Because again, that's how you learn. It's just to watch and take notes and emulate, and even reaching out to some people and say, hey, I see this is how you do your styling of interview. What are some of the things that you could give me as a beginning interviewee? What are some advice and tips that you might do? So what would you pass along to somebody who was just starting out in journalism and wanted to, say, follow a career path where they go out and do interviews with folks? What are some of the best tips that you could give somebody who really wants to learn how to learn and hone their craft?
Yeah. Well, there's a number of things. At the top of the list would be one, do your homework, do your research. When you're going to interview a person, know who that person is, know what they've accomplished in their life, know some of the challenges that they have overcome in their life. So do your research to thoroughly find out who they are, because your questions should be based on those things. It comes out of that. And when you see bad interviews, most of the time it's because the person doing the interview has not thoroughly researched the person they're doing an interview on. And they waste time with questions that have really nothing to do with who this person is and what they've accomplished. So number one would be, do your homework, understand who you're talking to, and therefore understand what questions are important with this particular person and what questions are not important for you to ask.
Yeah. So seeing how the number of people that you've actually interviewed over your career, is there like maybe one singular, or maybe there's a couple of interviews that you've done that kind of stand out that really either taught you a lesson about somebody or changed your opinion on somebody that you've done, in your career? Because you have, again, you've interviewed quite a few people, so it's spanning a long time. But I know it's maybe you have that person at the top of your head, but just one of the things I've always been interested about whenever I see people who do really big interviews all the time is that, is there always something that they can take away, or is there one singular person that really just blew them away whenever they did an interview? So have you ever had that happen in your career?
Yeah, you actually learn about people when you go out and do an interview, because what most people know about someone who's a public figure is they know the public story about them. They basically know the hype, they know the image of that person. But many times that's not the real person. That's the made up stuff made up by the press, or made up by their, press releases on their side. So you get to know the real person sometimes. And one that comes to my mind is the first big interview that I ever did. I was living in California at that particular time, and I was flown out by the magazine to do an interview with George Foreman. And George Foreman had been heavyweight champion of the world. They flew me to Houston, and this was after he had lost the championship to Ali, and then he had also lost to another boxer, and his career was pretty much in question. So I fly out to do the interview, and what I have in my head, of course, is the George Foreman, the guy who beat up Frazier and
exactly
knocked people through the ropes, this brutal guy. And I get there to do the interview, and to my surprise, he meets me at the airport there in Houston, and he drives me to his house in a flatbed truck, and we're talking. And this guy is like the nicest guy you've ever met. I mean, this is somebody who, although he's a big dude, you just got the impression he wouldn't hurt a fly. It's like, this is the guy that's been pulverizing people, And as we're driving down the road in Houston, and it was a lot more rural then.
Yeah.
We're driving down, so there's 2-lane highway, and this car comes from behind us, like this, Firebird or something, and zooms past us and then cuts us off and almost ran us into a ditch, right? So he regains control of the car, and I'm like, whoa, and the people who did it, finally they get to a traffic light and they stop, and then we're catching up with them. All right. So in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, we're gonna get these guys. They don't know who they just ran off the road. Me and George are gonna take care of these guys.
I can imagine.
So we pull up next to them in the truck, and they look over at us, and George is leaning out of the truck, and they see it's George Foreman, And their eyes now are big as saucers. You know, they're probably having the same kind of fantasies I'm having. Oh my God, we just ran George Foreman off the road. You know, George leans over out of the truck, looks at these guys, and he says, "I'm sorry." And I'm like, "You're sorry?" Whoa, wait a minute, George. You mean we're not going to take care of these guys? But that's the kind of person that he had become. You know, he was apologizing to them instead of the other way around. And it just immediately clicked in my head. Wow, the entire image that I had of this guy is just so far off base from who he really is.
Wow. And that's, and if you, I mean, and I got to tell you this, I remember, and I was only 15 at the time, but my father used to go to Vegas every year as a kid, as a summer vacation, sort of for the kids and us, right? He'd go to vacation. That was his spot to go because he loved to gamble. And I remember one year that he was actually fighting out there, and I was only like maybe 15 at the time. My younger brother, we were actually coming out of an elevator, and there are three guys surrounding. There's some guy in the middle. And as we come out of the elevator, you know, we step out and they kind of let us go by. And then we turn around and there's this big, huge, imposing figure. And standing right there in between them is George Foreman. And you go, God, he was a mountain of a man. He was huge. So, you know, I can imagine seeing that now that when you tell that story of him leaning over and saying, "I'm sorry," because he was just but again, like you said, right, that was who he'd become. And that was, you know, gosh, that's one of the things about why I love talking to people who, like you, who've lived these stories, because again, you get to see a different side of that person, like you were talking about. It's not what the media shows you. It's those things that you really take away from somebody. You see, no matter who they are or how big they are or what their wealth is or whatever, that they're just humans like the rest of us. They have, you know, same thing, emotions. We're built the way we do so much together the same way. And it's so wonderful to hear stories like that, because again, that's something that's going to, not only from your experiences now, something that I'll take with me for a very long time, saying, remembering who that guy was and how he viewed life. And that was such a wonderful, wonderful thing. So let's jump ahead a little bit now and get into how you got started, of course, in putting together the media company, Blue Panther Media. So one of the things that really interested me whenever I was doing a lot of the research on you and reading up on you is that you're getting into prominently into esports. Now, esports is a very, very huge subject matter. You hear guys kind of like Gary Vee talking about it as well. So when you see when you see a lot of these people who are really delving into it and are really interested in what the potential can be, what was one of the things that kind of sparked your interest in wanting to get started in learning how to do esports? Because again, they just a couple of years ago built this massive complex out here in Arlington, where that's where they hold all these huge esports events now. So let's talk a little bit about that, because again, I know, because my daughter is a huge gamer, is into any she's into esports too a lot. So you know, kind of walk us through that process for you, because it seems like you always seem to be in the right place at the right time for a lot of things in life.
Yeah. Well, that's probably due to, you know, the guy up above more so than me. But you know, it's a lot of things I go into because I'm always looking to see how many people I can help. You know, most of the time that's my motivation to do anything. And so in looking at esports, which has become a billion-dollar industry, I was looking for a way that I could really help our community here in Houston, and help the city out and a lot of the communities that are here that really need some type of, something to provide some jobs, something that can really uplift the community and give them something to sustain themselves. So, in looking at that and saying, okay, what is it that I can do that might be of help? And of course, being in journalism and the media my entire life, I said, well, that's one thing I know that I can leverage, but what do I hook that up with that can be a big help to people? And as I did my research, I ran across esports and saw the growth of it and the trajectory of where this thing is going to end up, 5-10 years from now. And I said, you know what? And this involves young people. This can be a great opportunity to really help a lot of people if I get involved with this. So that was really the motivation to start Blue Panther Media and to get into esports as a way of helping people, and especially the young people in our communities.
Yes, and it's again, it's one of those things again that's it has a really lot of potential for what it can become. Now, of course, I think a lot of that, of course, has been kind of stalled a little bit, just like everything else has because of COVID-19. Because I think that's, that was one of the growing things is you started having like teams and you started having people who are actually becoming very well known within the complex of esports and how it was being played. And of course, all of that was, again, COVID-19 was nothing that I don't think anybody expected, but I don't think it'll temporarily stop certain things. But again, I think in a lot of aspects, though, you're talking about gaming has taken off now because there's more people at home. There's more people jumping into it. So I think when things open up again, that's going to be one of those. That's going to be one of those fields that just kind of, I think, shoots off as soon as the gates open. And of course, that's awesome that you're already getting involved in it and already have your quote unquote your toes in the water, and exactly what it can. You see the potential as well. So tell us a little bit more as well about some of the other things that that you've wanted to start accomplishing with Blue Panther Media, because again, that's a lot of it's very interesting to me about podcasting and content creation and again because you have so much that you do as well, because you're also you help people with business to business. So a lot of ventures in there you talk about. So let's talk a little bit more about some of the other things that you're putting yourself into with Blue Panther Media.
We not only do content creation, we have a show. My show, Play to Win. We put out a weekly show, and that, of course, interviews people in the esports industry. And it gives a 360-degree view of what the entire industry is. The people who work behind the camera shooting esports, the people who put on the tournaments, the people who plan other events, competitive gamers, those professional esports players, team owners, celebrities who are getting into esports. So there's so much going on in that space. So we do that. We also, I tie in with the show and with the other things that we're doing. We are with Blue Panther Media starting an esports league for high schools here. And so we're going to be dealing with 72 schools, junior highs and high schools, providing esports. We're hooking that up with corporations who are going to be sponsoring their programs in the schools and rolling out with that STEM programs, entrepreneurship programs, and life skill programs also in the schools. So all that is hooked in together with what we're doing in esports. So, doing a lot of things there. And of course, I work with businesses, helping them develop their business and doing everything from creating their websites for them, providing content for their websites and for their podcasts, to just giving them advice on how to operate and start and run a business. So we got our hands on a lot of things.
Yeah, and again, that's interesting that you're not only that you're looking at it from the gamer side, but again, like you said, you're doing STEM programs because, again, just like anything, not only are you going to need people who play the games, but you can also need people to create them, to write code, and to do all the interesting things, because that's such a wonderful thing that you're getting into, because again, I think it adds so much value to a lot of youth who, in the past, this wouldn't have been an avenue for them to pursue, at the high school level, learning how to do these things, because it was something that we never really thought about instilling into what we do and how we create. So that's a whole nother thing as well, because my daughter is she actually likes to write code, and she's learning how to do that herself, and that's that's potentially a trade for them going forth in school and learning how to do that. By the time you're getting out of high school, you're like, hey, I know some of the programs to learn how to write. I know some of the languages to write code. I know some of these other things as well. And that's always, to me, that's one of the ways that we talk about changing our education system in some parts, is letting these avenues like that be available to kids who don't, not to say that they wouldn't be able to, but to some kids who don't see sports or some of these other ways to get out of their economic situations, right? I mean, it was usually either back then, it was either drugs or getting into sports as an avenue to find a way to pull yourself out of whatever whatever situation you were in. If you were living in a if you were struggling economically with your family and financially, and that sort of thing. So I can see how that's another avenue of offering a way for kids to go, hey, these are going to be avenues to pull yourself out, man. If you really work on it, concentrate. That's very commendable, very honorable, Mr. Gentry. I love that you're doing that. And then one of the other things that, of course, I always get interested in is about the creative process itself. And it's always interesting to me to ask somebody who, like you, who's been a journalist, who's written and done other things as well. What are some of the things that you do whenever you approach any kind of new project, whether it's a writing project, whether it is taking on a project like this, or whether it's going in back to your roots and interviewing? So the creative process is always it's always open for interpretation the way that each person does it. So kind of tell me about your process. What are some of the things that you do to prepare yourself to, again, approach something new whenever you want to go out and whenever you want to go attack something and really want to put yourself out there?
Well, again, it's really doing your homework, doing a lot of research on whatever subject it is or whatever field you're thinking about going into. As a writer, one thing I've learned over the years is that good writers, in most cases, are good readers. They're well read, and so, if you have read good material, it helps you to be able to then write and produce good material. The old saying, garbage in, garbage out, but if you're feeding yourself the right things and you're reading a lot of things that are, that are good, a lot of different concepts, different philosophies on things, different success stories of how people became successful and how they did things, if you're reading a lot of things like that, it's going to help you when it comes to you then producing things as a writer. And the same thing when I deal with any businesses, that's the same way that I attack those as well. I do extensive research on anything that I'm going into so that I know the ins and outs of it. I know the pitfalls. I know what things, I need to be aware of, what things I need to avoid. So again, that's how I would encourage anyone. If you're going to do something, try to become the expert at what you're doing.
That's a wonderful way to. That's a kind of a wonderful way to segue into, what you do for businesses as well. So, walk us through that as well. Whenever you go through the process of, whenever you have entrepreneurs who come and want to learn how, or looking for a way to, quote unquote, scale their business, or learn how to approach a different aspect of doing business to business sales. Because again, that's another thing that you cover so well. So let's walk through that process, because I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there who would love to hear how you help and coach other business owners.
One thing that has to be taught right up front is that just because you have an idea doesn't mean that that's a business. Some people have what they think is a great idea to do something. And so they go about it thinking, well, since it's such a great idea, obviously it's going to be a successful business for me. But that's not necessarily true. That's why within the first 5 years, 80% of businesses fail. If it was that easy, just having a great idea, you see a lot more success out there, So even though you're starting a business, even though it may be a good idea, there are still business fundamentals that you need to know. See, and so it's those business fundamentals, creativity, innovation, how to put together a good process for your business to do successfully what you do, how to cut costs in what you do, how to leverage technology. There's just a number of things that people in business who want to be successful need to know and need to know how to do. So I try to help people see it from that standpoint and cover all their bases in order to give themselves the best chance of being successful.
Man, and sometimes it's just having that, having those kind of conversations and putting the truth about a business idea or something out there for somebody to actually see it, hear it from somebody else's perspective, to go, well, you know what, maybe you're right. Maybe this isn't the best idea to go forward with. And again, do you help formulate some of these plans into something that's more pliable, or something that's actually doable, that can actually become a reality that you might see has potential to grow? Or kind of walk me through that process as well, because that, sometimes somebody can get really hung up on an idea and go, it's got to work, right?
Right. And it's you have an idea that may even be a good idea, but most of the time it needs fleshing out. It's like having a skeleton. Hey, you have to put some muscles on those bones. You have to put in a respiratory system. You have to put in a circulatory system so the blood's going through. So it's like you're building something, but you have to make sure that it's not one-dimensional, because that's a great idea, but understand that once you get out there in the marketplace, now you're competing against other people. And those businesses have already went through their trial and error and learned from their mistakes, and they're on the road. So you have to understand that it comes down to competition. And again, you want to give yourself the best chance of being successful. So don't just be an entrepreneur and an idea person. study business so that you know the ins and outs and the fundamentals of doing business, because that's going to determine whether you're going to be successful or not just that you have a great idea. Just because you can bake a cake doesn't mean you can run a bakery.
Right. That's a good way to put it. So we had a question from the crowd here. So Mr. Pollock is asking, so what are his thoughts on non-for-profit? So he's kind of going through the process of creating a non-for-profit himself. And of course, he's trying to do his due diligence before he actually goes full bore. He's done a lot of work and a lot of research. So what are some of your ideas on somebody who wanted to start a business as a non-for-profit?
Well, two main things. One, understand just because it's a not-for-profit organization does not mean that it's not still a business. Okay, not-for-profits also have to make money.
Yeah.
If not, the doors close. So you are also in the business while you're doing your not-for-profit. Whatever focus the charity has, you still have to do great business fundamentals. The Heart Association, the Cancer, Association, all of those, are huge nonprofit organizations. But guess what? They also bring in millions and millions of dollars a year. And if they don't bring in that money, they can't function at that level. So one, make sure that even though it's a not-for-profit business, always understand that it's still a business and you have to make good business decisions to be successful with that. Okay. The other thing about a not-for-profit is always make sure that what you're doing is needed. Okay. If I want to help people, I have to first make sure that those people, A, need my help, and B, want my help. Okay. So as you go into a not-for-profit business, try to find an area of not only need, but an area where that need is not being sufficiently supplied. If you go into and you're going to have a food pantry and you set up on the block, and next thing you know, you realize that you're on a block with 10 other people who also have food pantries. So although you're trying to take care of a problem, it's a problem in that area that's already being taken care of. See, so again, make sure that it's a need that you're trying to solve and that the people there actually are asking for help with that need and is not being supplied by anyone else. So that's a good area for you to get into.
What a wonder. Yeah, that's a good one. So it's pretty interesting what he's doing. He's trying to help. He's teaching people how to cook and live on a healthy lifestyle that are about to or are on dialysis. So that's kind of, and that's one of the good things that he does is that he's living his passion because he went through the process himself. So that's pretty interesting. That's good advice as well. So, good job, Mr. Pollock. Appreciate you always for doing that. So, just a couple of other things before we wrap up out of here. One of the questions that I always love to ask somebody is that, when somebody wants to go out and let's just say wants to scale their business, right? What are some of the things that you can help somebody who has an existing business but really needs to help it grow or want to learn how to scale it to the next level of success? Because I think sometimes that's a whole nother ballpark when you're talking about growing a business. And for some people, they've worked hard enough to start it and build something, but they struggle sometimes trying to put it together to make it elevate to a whole nother level of success. So kind of walk us through that as well, because that's one of the interesting things I've always wanted to learn about as well.
Yeah. There are a number of things that you have to be able to scale. One is more customers is what you're really talking about when you're talking about scaling up.
Yeah.
You can't say, well, I'm going to scale my business. I've got 20 customers and next week you have 21. That's not scaling your business up. See, so one of the great ways to scale your business is through collaborating with other businesses who can use your services. A good example is I'm a vegan. So one of the products that I use is Beyond Meat. And Beyond Meat makes plant-based meat. Okay. So not only have they now collaborated with restaurants who are now providing Beyond Meat in their restaurants to their customers as a meat alternative, but they've also gotten into Starbucks to provide a sandwich there. They've hooked up with Dunkin' Donuts to provide a plant-based sausage sandwich there for them. They have went to China and they're collaborating with Alibaba, who's opening grocery stores there in China. So they're going to provide plant-based meat for them now in China. They've done a test with McDonald's so that they may soon have their burger in McDonald's as a plant-based meat alternative there. So they are partnering with other companies to provide what they do. And so that's one of the things that I would tell people who are going into business and want to scale up. Look for opportunities to partner with other people who already have some distribution channels going already, who already have customers of their own that you can then provide a product or service to, and you automatically pick up their customers. So you can double your size or triple your size very quickly, getting with the right partners.
So, man, that's another wonderful thing, because again, I've never thought of that sort of process whenever you're talking about connecting and collaborating with other businesses. That's a great answer. So, man, David, yeah, so he kind of knows about a little bit about that, which is awesome. He knows about Beyond Meat when he's worked for Whole Foods. Okay, cool. That's another thing I'm learning about as well, because I just a little bit of confession. I recently started myself down the path of becoming a vegetarian, not vegan just yet, but I've wanted to. I really wanted to approach just finding a better. For me, what works for me is a better, healthier lifestyle of eating, because it was something that. My health has become really important, and I think that's one of the things that I want to concentrate on as well, because seeing there's a lot of key factors in my background and my DNA that my father died of diabetes, and I've had two brothers who've got it, and I knew that if I didn't change my healthy lifestyle, I would be heading for the same thing. So I've made a lot of changes in my life, and that's one of them. So, man, I'm glad I'm learning about a lot of this stuff. So I will be checking out Beyond Meat, because, I'm looking for alternatives, as a way to plan out and eat healthier, and still not give up the quote unquote flavor of doing certain things, and creating menus and cooking, that sort of thing. And hopefully, who knows, it rubs off on the family, rubs off on the kiddos. Maybe they take it upon themselves to do the same sort of thing. So I love that approach. So this is the part of the interview where I get to the magic question that I've asked every single one of the guests who's come on, except for one. And I'm going to go ahead and run it by you. So let's go ahead and ask it. And it goes pretty much like, so when the book is said and done on Charles Gentry, what kind of legacy do you want to leave behind? And what is it that you want to be remembered for?
Well, I wouldn't say so much that I want to be remembered. You know, if no one remembers me, that won't bother me. But but what I do want to leave behind is the work that I've done to help people. You know, that's the main thing. If I've accomplished all these things in life, you know, writing 4 books and writing hit songs and doing, you know, just all the stuff that I've done. If I've done all that stuff, but when you look at what I've done, and it's only helped me, you know, I'm the only one it's ever helped. To me, I'm a failure, you know, because life should be all about not just what you can accomplish, but how you can help other people to accomplish what they were put here to accomplish in life as well. So that's why throughout my, you know, life, no matter what area of my career I was in, I always found a way to hook up some segment of the community that I could help in doing that, whether it was at-risk kids, you know, whether it was adults who needed a better way to be able to provide for their families, needed some opportunities, you know, whether it's helping other people, you know, to kind of build things with people who are not like them. You know, that's a big bridge today. You know, people are trying to find out, how do we work with other people who are not like us? How do we work with other races? How do we work with people in other economic, you know, areas? And so it's helping to be a bridge a lot of times is what people need. So when all is said and done, that's what I want people to be able to look back and say, wow, he really, really helped a lot of people. And he was a bridge to help people get from where they were to where they needed to be.
What a wonderful, that is awesome. And if I, you know what, to echo those same sentiments, if I can leave this earth the same way, man, I felt I would have accomplished a lot.
You're doing a good job with this show, Gabriel.
Well, thank you,
You're really doing a good job with this.
thank you for that. Because again, I think that's that's one of the ways to help and spread a message. And you know, kind of to what your point was, I want to go out and help as well, and not only help in more ways than that, but like to help build my community, do things using what I can use with as far as like my talents and stuff like that. So you know, that's one of the things I've been talking about a lot, and I'm putting it out there because the more I put it out there, the more it's going to make me manifest it. And that is that I want to use my creative writing to go out and teach. Teach young, you know, teach youth, teach kids who maybe want to learn what it is to write those skills, to develop those skills, to, I mean, if they want to become, you know, kind of like what Gloria taught you, right? I mean, how much impact did that singular moment have in your life? And all it took was reaching out to you at the right time and telling you the right words that helped, you know, develop a lot of things that help create who you are as a person. And I think that's one of the things that my heart's calling me to do as well, is to go out and say, hey, you know, find the right group, teach as many people as I possibly can, as many kids as I can, to say, hey, your words are power. What you take in, what you share, and again, like you said, what you take in as far as reading, right? These are all going to be wonderful things to help you develop. You never know when or where the next great, you know, writer or poet or lyricist is going to come from. And, you know, if it's something in my life that's supposed to help somebody formulate that, man, to me, that would be living one of the blessed lives that I could have imagined. And, you know, and have those impact and maybe one day become a bullet point in somebody else's career. I'm like you, I don't have to be sitting center stage. I would just love to lead by example and lead with my heart and help people, again, change the world, but one person at a time, right? That's really how you do it.
Exactly. And it's a powerful thing to help other people be able to tell their story.
Yeah.
Because their story can impact so many people. So if you're helping them, learn how to write and learn how to tell their story, that's a powerful thing.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I my heart has been calling me to go do for a while. So that's the next step for me, is to go out and start doing it, and then just putting action into again into my community. And that's really all. If enough of us do that, if enough of us take the time to go teach and do these sort of things, I really do believe we're going to be the change that we want the world to become.
One teach one. Yeah.
Exactly. Just that simple, right? And that's an amazing thing. So thank you so much, Charles, for taking the time, coming on the show, man. Not only for tonight, but then for the roundtable, coming on there and giving your views. It added so much value. I think a lot of people took a lot away from that. So, man, you're a gentleman's gentleman, and I appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your life and your experiences with everybody. So, all the gratitude in the world. Just want to express that to you. So, and everybody else, real quick, thank you so much again for following along. Thank you for tonight for battling through with some of the technical issues that we had. That's one of the things I say we always do with the live show. You're always going to have these things that can happen. But everybody who followed along, David, Deborah, Teresa, Annie, thank you so much. Michael Ray, awesome. All of you guys, you are the lifeblood of what I do here every single night, and you're the fire and the passion that keeps this guy burning. So thank you so much again, and thank you, Charles. So just sit tight real quick. I would love to have a quick word with you. Everybody else, that's going to do it for this evening. Thank you again so much. We'll be back tomorrow evening, 7:00 Central Standard Time, with our guest, Rob Alasabas. He is a live streaming, he is a TubeBuddy evangelist. He is a lot of things. He's going to teach us a lot about live streaming tomorrow. So follow along, 7:00. Thank you so much, everybody. You have a great evening. Stay safe, stay blessed.
Thank you, Annie.
Yes, thank you, Annie, so much. She is wonderful, isn't she?
Yes, she is.
All right, guys. I will catch you tomorrow evening, 7:00 Central Standard Time. Good night, everybody.